So we're going to go over the new contracts that are coming out with the NAR. A lot of the contracts are the same with just some small changes, some large changes in a few of them. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm going to go through and just kind of walk you through some of the biggest changes and some of the ways to fill out and a couple of the documents that some people don't think about that some title companies may now start asking about and may start asking you to provide. So just keep that in mind. And here on the screen, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 contracts. These are the biggest ones I could think of and that people have been talking about. If there's any other ones, feel free to throw out and I'll throw another video after this one tying it together. But these should be the 9 we need. Now I do not mention farm and ranch in here because their contract, a lot of it already talked about this payment between broker and owner and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't get into the farm and ranch. So feel free to read that contract as well. And a lot of this will be repetitive. Like a lot of the contract changes are very similar. So it's a really good review to kind of look, and some of them are things you may not haven't seen or looked at very often before. But all these forms that I'm showing you are from TREC, Texas Real Estate Commission, built by lawyers, not by me. I'm not a lawyer. These are made from lawyers. I'm just going to walk through them and kind of give you some ideas of how to use them and some things you need to think about. One of the biggest changes that we're going to see now, before, a lot of people are like, why do you have to go through this? With the new ruling that came out with the Texas Real Estate Commission, where NAR, National Association of Realtors, got sued for saying they were fixing prices, etc. We now have to disclose all fees and everything that's all negotiable, which it already was, and we already did, but somehow people weren't understanding that. So now we're going to make it very, I don't want to say idiot proof, but make it really easy to understand so people know what's going on. So this is what most people think about when you're looking at the buyer tenant rep. So from now on, starting August 17th, just so everybody knows who's watching the video, you cannot show a buyer a home or a rental client a home unless you have this form signed. You can't open the door for someone unless you have one of these, this form or the short buyer tenant rep I'll show you next. And when I say buyer tenant rep, I mean residential buyer tenant representation. We say it short for buyer tenant rep. So this one is the same at the top. This all, kind of does everything here. You'd fill in your market area. I always like to say I'm in San Antonio area. So I say San Antonio and surrounding areas. That way, if they try to go something, or San Antonio MLS and surrounding areas or anything like that. So if they try to go to a forced about owner behind my back, I can still get my commission. Things like that. The term begins here. I like to do my term for a year when I'm showing homes. It's up to you, whatever you want. The main changes, though, that's what I want to kind of get into and not worry about how you fill it out. I have other videos walking people through how to fill out contracts. Is that this, like it says right here, is not set by law. It's not fixed, fully negotiable. That's the big thing. And then it says when a broker fee is earned, the client will pay the broker, which is your buyer's agent, either a 3% or whatever, or a certain amount. And then for a lease, you'd also have the one in here for leases. So if you're showing rentals as well. And then right here, such persons refuse or pay, the client will pay the broker the amount less than a broker receives from such persons, et cetera, et cetera. And that's all lawyer talk. So what it means that when I go to show my buyer a home, if as a realtor, we usually make 3% or there's no set commission again, but it could be anything. If I was going to make 3%, for example, and I go to show my client a home and I look and I call the other agent because we're no longer on the MLS, they're going to be able to say how much the commission is. That's part of the deal. You're going to have to reach out to the other agent and find out what they're paying. So if I reach out to the agent and they're like, yes, we're paying 3%, I will say, great, love it, good to go. Let's go show that home. And my buyer has nothing to worry about. They're paying my commission, the listing agent. But if the listing agent says, I'm only paying 2% to someone who brings me a client for this home, that other 1% difference, now my buyer has to make that up and they have to pay me that 1%. So this is a conversation you're going to have with your buyers to let them understand your value, what you're worth. I'll do another video talking about buyer presentations, kind of walking through and how to show your value. A lot of places like Canada and some other states, they've always had this. This is only new in certain parts of the US. So it's not going to be a big game changer, I don't think. I don't think we're going to see huge, anyone losing their mind or anything, but you're just going to have to know how to deal with it. So this right here, very simple. Most of the rest of the buyer tenant rep is pretty much the same. And then you're just going to fill it out like you always have, and then everyone signs it at the bottom. So you sign it and your client signs it. So again, if you use this one or the short form, I'm going to show you the short one in a minute. You can't show a home to a buyer starting August 17th until you have this one or the other one signed. It just isn't going to be allowed. So you have to remember that. It's going to be a big difference for things happening. So there it is, 3%, good to go. So that would be the one for the full form buyer tenant rep. Now, if I pull up the short form for the buyer tenant rep right here, you can see it says at the top short form. Again, you put your party, you and your client, and you can see this is only one page. So then right here, in agreement, acquire, da 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 da, you put your market area, the same thing, San Antonio, MLS, and surrounding areas, and then you put your date, and then you would say, are you going to use me? Am I using this real estate agent for full services, which means I'm going to buy the whole home and use them, or am I only going to use them for showing? So this is very interesting where we're saying, okay, we're only using you for showing by a real estate agent. We no longer have to pay you the percent. So now you can just tell your realtor, I don't want to pay you the full percent. I only want to pay you for $3,500. And that's your fee to open doors for whatever, do contracts. If you charge per hour, it comes up to many, many hours for the back things people don't think about what realtors do, because it looks like you just open doors. There's so 99% of what you do, most clients never see. So that's what you could charge for, that contract. You could do whatever. You could even charge, hey, I only want you to open a door for me. I don't care anything, and I want to see 3 doors opened. Let's say an agent says, okay, I charge $100 a door. There you go. They make $300 to open 3 doors. They can't do anything else except open the doors and let the clients, give them a printout maybe saying this is the home, enjoy, and then they let the client look, they make sure everything is safe, secure, lock the home, close it up. That's all they're doing for that. They're just opening doors. Now, if the client says, ooh, I love this home. I'm ready to buy this home now. And you're like, oh, sounds great. We are now turning into a full service. And then you come into this section 7 where you have your broker compensation. And now I'm going to say purchase. Okay, I'm going to make 3% is what I'm going to be paid. Or I could put an amount like we talked about. Like say they want to pay me $3,500 instead. I can do something like that if I didn't want to pay the percent. And then you can go that way and you can have, sorry, I put the percent there. You can have whatever percent. But at this point, you have to remember this is negotiable. So there's no reason I can't put 4% here and tell my buyer if I can show my value, say, hey, I'm going to do this for 4% and this is my fee. Because you can only get paid up to the amount on your buyer tenant rep, either form. You can get paid less, it's fine, but you can only get paid up to. Now for new homes coming out there, they did pass a thing I read the other day. I think it's correct. I'll double check. If anyone can leave comments on the video, I'd love it. Share some thoughts you have about new homes. So if they offer bonuses, you can get bonuses above this. So like right now, there's some new homes doing 6% for agents because they have a hard time selling some of their homes. If I can get that home sold at 6%, I can adjust this, and I'll show you the adjustment form in a minute where we can change the buyer tenant rep. Or I can have them give me that other 2% as a bonus, and it would work either way. Now, if I can also, for FHA, for each type of loan, there's certain amount of funds you can get from sellers to help you cover closing costs and such. That's called gift funds. Well, it's called seller concessions, but it's considered gift funds. I don't want to get too complicated and get into all that right now. That's a different video. But what that means is that for an FHA loan, I can get up to 6% of the price of the home. So if it's a $300,000 home, I can get $18,000 to cover closing costs, to cover my commission, whatever I want. And the good thing is now for FHA, they said that we are allowed, say the selling agent, the listing agent, the selling's the buyers, the listing agent says my client is not going to pay your commission. Your buyer has to pay your commission. Well, very few agents are even going to show the home. But if you come in and get 4% extra, so you can get 6% for your buyer, and you could get up to whatever commission you put on for yourself. And usually they cap the seller concession at 6% for an FHA loan. But by doing it this way, FHA now said you can get your commission from the seller concessions and it doesn't count as the gift funds. So I could get myself a 4 or 5 or 10% commission as long as I can negotiate that person and that seller, if I'm a good negotiator, I can get whatever I want for my commission. Usually it's 3%. I don't want to sound crazy and say 6% and all that. It's usually 3% is what most agents make. But I've done two, I've done 1.5. It doesn't matter. I've done one, I've done 1%. Who cares? Whatever you can do to help your client. That's important. Take care of your client. So whenever you're in here doing this, if you for FHA, you can get seller concessions to cover your commission, and it doesn't count as gift funds. So I could get up to, instead of 6, I can now get 9% seller concessions. So I can do a full price offer at a $300,000 home, and instead of dropping the price, I now get 9%. I just made 3%. The client gets 6. Anything left over, my client can get back at closing for whatever earnest money they put down. So there's a great, that's more of when we get in negotiations, and I do that lesson, but that's a great way. So this is what this is saying though. You can only make up to this amount unless it's a bonus for a new home. And then of course right here, if you want to do intermediary or not, that's a whole nother thing getting into that. And this is it. So this is a very simple, short form, very easy to understand. If you're doing rentals even, or purchase, fees, like right here, if it was a lease, I could say, hey, I know that this rental company pays $250, but I'm not going to show you homes for $200 and drive around all day and open 6, 7 doors. I use too much gas. It doesn't work. So instead, I'm going to say, you know what? 1 month's rent or this amount. Or I can do this, or I can do 100%. I can change whatever I want to do. So you can put the amount and tell them, again, I'm going to work for you. I'm now a showing service. I'm no longer going to make this. I'm going to make $300 driving you around this day. Or I might do it for $500. What are you wanting to charge the client? It's going to be very open now, very fluid to what we can. It always was, but no one thought about it like this. Now we have this nice, easy, short form. Very simple. Do you want me to open the doors? Do you want me to work for you? Great. You want me to work for you and do my real job? This is what you pay me. That's how it comes down to. All the other things, all the negotiations come into all that. And then, of course, you represent the buyer, and that's what. And you're good to go that way. Now, once you're good there and everything looks, of course, there's going to be a way to change it. So here's the amendment to the buyer-tenant rep. So if you go in here and have to amend it, so again, the market areas, you can amend the market area, you can amend the effective date, and then you can see right here, broker fees, purchase lease, bonuses. This is where you can add the bonuses. You can do all that kind of stuff. Client, this is where you can amend it. So say I'm making 2% is what I agree with my buyer. You only have to pay me 2% as an agent. But the listing agent says, hey, we're willing to pay you 3% or 4% if you bring someone here because this home has been on the market too long. So if I can get in there and get 4%, I would just change this because I can only get paid up to what your buyer-tenant rep says. Remember that. So then right here, broker fees, they're changed to 4%. And then lease, I would change the amount, etc. Or I could go right here, broker obligation is changed instead of showing. I'm going to do full service now. So you can, instead of doing a whole new buyer-tenant rep, you could just do the amendment here and say, okay, so when you show homes now as an agent, you're going to probably want one of these ready to go in your pocket or in your file ready to bring with you because you're going to make sure that, hey, I'm going to need to have this ready to sign. Because if you talk to your client and do your presentation when you sit down, they're going to have to sign one of these. And if they only want you to open doors, and then they're like, I want full service now, then you pull this form out and get them to sign. So it's a little more complicated now, but not bad. Remember, what service are you giving and what are you going to charge? That's what you have to figure out on the buyer side. And then your client is going to pay the fee. And a lot of people are going to say, this is so crazy, but this is how it's happened. Like I said, in Canada and Europe, they do this a lot where you have to pay a big fee ahead of time. They don't even really have listing agents some places. They just say, our homes are for sale. And they put on the local news, the market, whatever. And then they find people who work in the area, find out, and they go around and talk to people. And then they bring clients and get paid. So it just depends what the area where we were kind of spoiled for a long time. Now it's going to get more complicated with the NAR thing. But that's a walkthrough of those. The next thing is this is for a lease agreement. If you're going to help someone like lease their home instead of sell it, this is for a lease. Exclusive right to lease, you do the same thing. Fill it all out, be ready to go. And then right here, the broker compensation. And then you're going to see the interesting thing here. This would be, let's say they're going to pay me, I don't know, 100% of 1 month's lease. If I help them rent, if I help them find a property, put on the MLS, screen a client, get it ready to go, and get someone in there and do the paperwork and get it set. And they're like, great. But the other agent, I need to say, oh, wait, the other agent is coming. If the other broker represents the tenant, I'm willing to pay $250 to give someone to bring the client over, or a 50% or whatever. And that's how you look at that. Now, the broker might say, now, even the person leasing their home, not just selling, but leasing, can say, I don't want to pay the other broker. I only want to pay my broker. So I'm going to say, great. I'm going to make 100% of whatever the lease amount is, and I ain't giving nothing to the other broker. It's up to the buyer now to go after their own client to get themselves paid. That's why the other two fees we talked about, the other two buyer tenant rep, is going to be so important, because now sellers can say, no, I'm not paying an agent. But the problem in that, if you say you're not paying an agent anymore, is that why would an agent show the home? Most buyers aren't going to have a lot of extra money to pay their agent. And I'm going to open now the regular listing agreement that most people think about, exclusive right to sell. And I use same thing in the top. You skip down to this big section right here, same type of thing. I'm going to pay the agent 3% or 6% is what we're going to come to, and my agent's going to pay the other agent 3% out of their commission. So you're not really paying 6%. A lot of sellers can't get that over their head, that you're not paying 6% to your client agent. You're paying only 3%, and then the other, we have to give up the other 3%. We don't give it up. We use it as marketing. We say, hey, you bring me a client, market my home, bring me someone, I'm going to pay you for bringing somebody. You're paying for a service. I call it my marketing. Either way. So this would be 6% here, for example, and then right here would be 3%. This is the normal, not really this, because remember, there's no set price. This is how it's been for usual. Or this could be 5%, and this would be 2.5%. You know, whatever you want to do, and usually you could split. Or a lot of agents will do 5 here, and they'll offer 2 to the other agent, and they'll keep 3. It doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. It's not set in schedule. Everything is fluid and flexible. Now, if there was no compensation, let's say the agent, the seller says, you know what, I'm not doing that. I'm willing to pay you 3% to lift my home, but I'm not paying the other agent anything. So then now I get paid 3%, but how am I going to get people to show the home if the buyer can't pay the other agent's commission for them? So you have to start thinking, what am I going to do? How's it going to work? How do I structure? You have to be a lot more thought out, more meticulous when you start doing your listing presentations and your buyer, because you're gonna have to let the sellers understand, if it's in this box here without a fee, that's going to be interesting, because how are you going to get someone? I now have no money to advertise the home, because this, of course, we have to pay broker fees, all that, taxes, all that. You don't really make very much after paying all the fees you have the realtor and paying your taxes, because 30% of that comes, so a third of that comes right off for taxes. So when all that happens, boom, you're going to not have as much. And then if they want to pay you 1% or 2%, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to do it for $5,000? There's a lot of different things that are going to be able to come up now. So if you don't have a good presentation set up, you're not going to know how to fill out this document. And the only bigger thing here, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to go through it all the way, but at the bottom here, see, regarding public marketing, it starts a little bit more in depth. At the end, it changed a lot down here. There's a whole lot of changes. Again, I'm not a lawyer compared to the old one, so read it, understand it. Again, a lot of it's the same not silly, a lot of it's the same stuff, like brokers authorized, things like that, all that's the same. But, you know, except for lost cause broker, seller talks a lot more about not holding the seller, the listing broker responsible for anything that happens on the home. If someone goes to see the home and they trip and hurt themselves, something is stolen from the home because you didn't lock it up, it's not your agent's fault. You should have done that. I saw a listing where a video where someone showed a home and they had a loaded shotgun sitting beside the bed when they were showing the home. And of course, the agent was there to make sure no one touched it or did anything stupid. But at the same time, that should have been locked up. Things like that should be, you should think about that. And that's what all this talks about. The last part, a lot of this changed. At the end, a lot of this is new. You see, it goes a couple extra pages now. And that's what everything kind of covers. All these additional notices are all new. And see, da 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 da. So you're going to have to read a lot more. There's going to be in there, and we're not going over everything. The main thing is from going over today is the changes with the commissions, because that's what people need to understand. If you have someone selling their home, and they're willing to pay you, you put your commission here, commission you're paying the other agent right there, boom. Now you're going to say, what about if they don't want to pay the other agent? You put your commission here, the other agent doesn't make anything. So there's some very interesting things that are going to be happening, and it's going to be changing a lot. So that is your exclusive right to list and exclusive rights to lease. I want to make sure I say listing agreement, but I want to make sure I say it correctly. Now these other forms, so here's your buyer tenant rep, your regular one, your short term, your amendment, your lease one, and this one. And just so you know, all these forms will be as an attachment underneath in a Google Drive link, and you can just click it and pull it up and be ready to go. Now right here, this is something that some title companies are going to start asking for, is a representation disclosure. Not too many, but some will. But just this shows that who do you represent? So let's say I'm a listing agent and my seller says, I do not want to pay the other agent. And I'm like, cool, don't pay them. And I'll try to, of course, let them understand, if you don't pay them, no one's going to show the home. They're not going to get paid. They're not going to come. They're not going to work. And that's supposed to be against fiduciary duty, but it's hard to prove. But you're going to have very few showings if there's no way to show the home and make it work, because it's not going to work. So when that happens, you're going to have to say what? Okay, you're going to tell your seller, I can't represent both sides. I can only represent one person. So you're going to say right here, who do I represent? This is who I represent, the seller. And then if they don't want to use an agent, the other side, they have to go get their own lawyer, whatever, have someone take care of them. You cannot help them because you represent this side. I recommend highly at that point to find a new agent, maybe give a little bit of your commission up or a small fee to that agent to represent them, so no one says you're trying to just take advantage of them. But this is something you'd want to talk with your broker if you have one side and they want you to represent both sides. Many times that's illegal in Texas. So you have to reach out and make sure you're doing your fiduciary duty and don't get yourself in trouble. So make sure you talk to your broker. You heard me say it on video here. Talk to your broker, get directions if that happens. Okay. The next form I want to show you is this compensation between broker and owner. Let me open this up. So this would be used, say you're doing a for sale by owner, and they're like, yeah, I would love to let you market my home, and I'd love for you to do an open house this weekend. And you're like, great, I'll do an open house Saturday. And then they would sign this form. Again, you fill it all out. What's the property? And then registers, da 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 da. This is if you have people coming in, you can put their name if you already know. This would also be used if you have a certain client. So like right here, broker registers all attendees at the open house this Saturday with the owner, etc. And then, the agreement begins on these days, and then etc. How much am I going to pay? If I sell it, they're going to pay me whatever percent. And then if it's a lease, you do the same thing. If it's a lease, it renews. You talk about renewals on a lease. And then who do you represent? I only represent the owner, or I only represent the people coming in. Of course, for a forcible owner, you'd represent the owner. But this is very interesting where someone might say, I don't want to have an agent. I'm going to sell my home and I'm not going to pay you, but you can still show your home. So if your buyer says, I really love this home and I want it, you can try to negotiate during the contract to get seller concessions to cover your closing, to cover your commission. But if they don't, you're now representing only the prospect, not the owner. You're only representing the prospect. And then if you were only representing the person selling the home, the owner, it would be the owner only. But if I'm the buyer's agent, I'm only going to represent the prospect. And even if the seller says I'm not paying you a commission, then if it's a forcible owner and they won't do it, my buyer is going to be the one held accountable for that commission. And then you can see right there, it has a little bit more legal stuff. And then you just go through, then it would be signed. So this is really good if you're doing, like I said, forcible owner, something like that, where someone wants to sell, but they don't want a lot of agents involved to try to save money on commissions. You can use this form. And that's, again, a compensation agreement between broker and owner, which is kind of a lot of people don't use that. I'm just showing it to you so you know it's there. Right here, this is a form that you're going to see more and more title companies asking for. This is a compensation agreement between brokers. So what I recommend, this is just my opinion, okay, not law, nothing like that, just so you guys know. I will have this filled out when I do a listing, and it's going to be an additional documents. Now, NAR is saying you shouldn't have you can't say how much you're going to pay somebody. So I'm going to have to make sure that would be okay to do that. I'll check with people and find out. But if it's okay, again, I'm not going to do it till I make sure. If it's okay, I'm going to have this in my additional information on my listing so they can pull it up and then they'll know what I'm offering to pay for compensation. And then every agent doesn't have to call me. I want to show your home. How much are you paying? I want to show your home. What are you paying? Because I'll already have it in here and it'll be ready to go. And again, right here, listing broker will pay cooperating broker 3% or a certain amount. And then a lease. And then you know exactly this is up. If you know cooperating broker, if you register your people, anyone who shows the home, however you want to say it, and you have the legal description of the home, which would be the whole address. When you have the address, boom, you have it here. Here's the information of the listing broker. And then I would leave this part blank and I'd leave this part blank so that if I had it up on my additional information, the other agent would come in. They would put their information here if I was the listing agent. Buyer agent would put their info here. They'd put their client's name here when they do the offer. Again, this form would be sent in during an offer and they'd put their form here and then you would have the commission amount here. Or the other thing you can do if it's not allowed in additional information, like I said, we're all trying to figure out what's going on. We don't know all the answers yet. You can go through there and you can just have this as part of your offer. So if I'm on the buy side and they don't have this out there yet and they're not saying what the commission is, I'm going to do this form right here, compensation agreement between brokers, as part of the offer. And I'm going to have my commission understood when I send the offer in. Because again, this is only between me and the other broker. Your client doesn't see this. Only you and the other broker see this, that yes, this is what I'm going to get paid. And if they haven't told you what they're going to pay you, this is now part of the offer. Because remember, commissions are negotiable. So if the other agent says what? Well, I'm not going to pay you your commission. I'm only going to pay you 1% instead of 3 or 4 or 5, whatever you thought you were going to get. And they're keeping 4 or 5 because they're greedy. Then this is something here where you can start to negotiate and say, oh no, I'm going to get my 3%. I'm only going to give you 2, 1. Okay, well then you fine, I'm going to get 2%, and then you get more seller concessions and you get the rest of your concession, your commission that way. Because you remember, commissions are paid by, buyer agent commissions are paid by the buyer, listing agent commissions are paid by the selling agent. And then the listing agent by the sellers. So listing agent commissions are paid by the sellers, and then they're willing to give some of that to the buyer's agent usually to advertise the home or market the home and bring an agent to bring their clients. Because again, you have to connect your home with someone to sell it, otherwise it's never going to sell. But this form is really important now because this now says, even though on the 1 to 4 it says what you're going to get paid, this now puts it in very easy, like, no, this is what I'm going to get paid. I'll still have my whatever percent I'm trying to get to in the 1 to 4. We'll say 3% to keep it easy. I'm going to have my 3% on the 1 to 4, but at the same time, I'll have this ready to go. Very important to kind of go through there and have that done. Now, the other thing we're going to look at, this is between brokers. We just did that. And this is an addendum regarding broker fees. So again, this should not be used with farm and ranch contract like it says. And this would be an addendum regarding broker fees, where if you and the broker, you go into contract and you're like, I'm working on this, I'm working on that. And then I've had many offers where the other agent said, hey, to make this work, instead of say 3%, I want you to accept a 2.5% commission. And then my sellers are willing to, they'll be willing to take the difference and give that to your client to help you out. And I'm like, I can do that. I can make 2.5. That works. I'll take care of my client. I always put them first. And then you just change it. Listing broker, seller, boom, boom, boom. And then you change the commission right here. So this would be the property address, of course. And then right here, this is other broker fees. You just change the commission, whatever you're paying. And it's very simple. And then this way, when the broker says right here, everyone now says broker fees up by law not fully negotiable, which is kind of interesting. I didn't have those before. Not to get sidetracked, but this form is if the commission changes. Let's say you go through, you're under contract, everyone agrees to the commission you're going to get, and then you need to change it to get more money for your clients. Or you have extra money coming in for bonuses or anything like that. You can go through here, and this is the form you would use to do those changes for your commissions. All right, so I know that was a whirlwind right there for 30 minutes, but walk through the forms. I went through the major changes again regarding our commissions. I didn't want to get in too much about it to discuss all the negotiations and everything. Please comment if you have any ideas or thoughts, anything like that. We love the feedback. If you haven't liked or subscribed, please like and subscribe so we can get updates on the newest documents coming out and everything happening. And we'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.